going to introduce Caitlin Brookings, who will talk about volunteer and donation coordination in disaster. And Caitlin, you can fire away.
All right. Good morning, folks. I'm just going to talk a little bit briefly about what the response looks like on the state level and where Volunteer Mississippi and volunteer organizations in general fall within the infrastructure of the statewide emergency response. So you may or may not know that MEMA, which is Mississippi Emergency Management Agency, has a comprehensive emergency management plan, or a CEMP. Lots of acronyms, try not to use them without defining them. It is visible on their website, which is msema.org, if you're interested in reading it. But this is a plan that is organized by what we call emergency support functions, or ESFs. And the work that has to be done during, immediately after, and during long-term recovery is all organized in that document by state agency and some NGOs. So we are one of 16 ESFs. We fall under ESF 6, which is colloquially known as Mass Care, but it's actually Mass Care, Emergency Assistance, Housing and Human Services Support function. So under that function, what that actually means is that these are activities that provide shelter and temporary housing, feeding, and other human needs, such as medical care, some economic assistance. But that's kind of the area of work voluntary organizations tend to fall into. There's plenty of other ones: the roads, the power structure, firefighting. If you look on the MEMA website, it lays them all out. So we're one of 16 ESFs within that state infrastructure. For ESF 6, the Mississippi Department of Human Services is actually the coordinating agency. So they're kind of the boss of all of these functions. And we are one support agency among many, maybe about 20 support agencies, including the institutions of higher learning, IHL, community colleges, mental health, rehab services, agriculture, extension services, etc. So there are a few NGOs, non-governmental organizations, within this structure as well. NGOs are very rare within the state infrastructure, but some state level agencies are in there, including the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and the Mississippi Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, or VOAD. Those are the three that are listed in this ESF. And I've mentioned this a couple times, but the activities that are coordinated at the ESF level are statewide. Throughout emergency management, and if you've ever been to one of my workshops, so hub director, sorry, I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, but the state assumes that disasters start and end locally. So our function is to support the local operations on the ground, but local communities are the leaders who kind of set the strategy for how a community begins to respond and recover, and the state agencies that are involved are there to support those plans. We don't come in and tell you what to do or what we're going to do. We offer support services so that you can carry out your strategy for recovery and response. So I did want to emphasize that fact. I'm hearing a lot from the agencies on the ground kind of asking if they have the jurisdiction to do this and do that. Local communities are our boss in this effort. So I did want to emphasize that point. And our goal is to actually work ourselves out of a job. So we come in, offer support services, try to bring resources to local agencies who are acting. Our goal is to sustain local organizations, help them get back on their feet, restore operations, and move on when the local agencies are stable. So that's kind of our goal when we're responding to an event. So our agency, the Mississippi Commission for Volunteer Service, or Volunteer Mississippi, is tasked with the coordination of volunteers and donations, again, at that state level. A lot of times after a disaster, a local church, the local United Way, agencies that serve the public every day are the ones who step up, manage volunteers, manage donations. So we can support those agencies if possible, and that's our preference. We follow your lead. We also work during Blue Skies to prepare and support local agencies and government to manage volunteers and donations. So a lot of the work that we actually do in this sector is around training, kind of helping people gather coalitions to prepare. We talk a lot about how you might manage volunteers in a disaster, how you might match volunteers with safe, organized opportunities to volunteer in the response. Our goal is actually for everyone to be an affiliated volunteer and be trained to carry out certain activities. Of course, that's not always what happens. People hear about something happening in their own community or neighboring community and they want to help. We don't stand in the way of that at all. Our goal is to help channel that desire to help to opportunities that engage people safely and efficiently as a resource to carry out the response plan. So we do operate at kind of the 5,000 foot level. Our goal is to identify gaps in service. So things that are going well, if the Red Cross is there feeding people, great. We're going to look at maybe what communities don't have a Red Cross or a Salvation Army who are there supporting those people and move resources to those places where people need it most. In order to do that, our agency is very small. We have 9 staff members and there are 82 counties. So we can't be everywhere at once. We usually do not go to the place that has had a disaster, but we try to move resources towards that place as quickly as possible. We rely on a lot of partners. We try to make as many friends as possible. Many of you are in the room today. Hubs, big shout out. The hubs are one of our main and most crucial partners in this work because they're on the ground every day, building relationships with nonprofits, managing volunteers, and in a disaster, those relationships are how communities get back on their feet very quickly. So we treasure our partnership with the hubs and with the Alliance very much. Another one of our major partners I mentioned is VOAD, Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. This is a group of specialized disaster response NGOs. In our state, they are mostly faith-based organizations, and we've got some chapters of national organizations such as Team Rubicon, who also respond to disasters. And they all have different specialized functions, but they are kind of the strike teams that do things like clearing debris. They all have, some of them have chainsaws, so they come and cut up trees that have fallen. Some of them are good at tarping roofs. Some of them are good at mucking and gutting after a flood. So that is a statewide conglomeration of smaller groups with specialized skills in disaster response. And they are a huge partner for us as well immediately after a disaster happens because they mobilize specialized volunteers quickly. They already have systems in place to organize their volunteer crews. Everybody's registered, they know who they are, they know how to contact them, and they're able to mobilize very quickly to meet a specific need. So that's VOAD. We are two different organizations. Sometimes there's confusion about that. But what Volunteer Mississippi does is kind of at that 5,000 foot level, trying to help place volunteer resources where they're needed and where there are gaps in service. One way that we specifically tend to manifest in the disaster is by managing what we call unaffiliated volunteers. The VOAD groups, those are what we call affiliated. They've got a list of volunteers they can call down. Their volunteers have received specialized training. They've filled out the forms. They've done the liability forms, our favorite buzzword. They've got the training that they need to do what they do. We try to organize the kind of folks who see something happen on the news and they want to help. So our goal is to collect all of those folks together in a centralized place. For this particular disaster, because of social distancing and safety measures, we are doing this all virtually. So our goal is to collect those folks and offer them opportunities to serve either with affiliated organizations or with local nonprofits who are responding. So basically what that means in this case is people are pre-registering online with a short form. They're getting emails every day that say, hi, thank you for volunteering. As soon as we have organized opportunities, we will let you know what they are and you can sign up according to your availability and what you want to do. On the other end, we are drumming up volunteer opportunities with groups who are responding. In this case, we'll be working with Samaritan's Purse, Team Rubicon, 8 Days of Hope, and Team Hope to hopefully place unaffiliated volunteers with those groups to serve in the field. And then the hubs, actually part of their job is in the regions that they serve to actually make those matches. So most times, in most cases, disasters are localized. There's a tornado in one town. So that's, pretty discrete where that area is. In this case, we've got a worldwide disaster happening, and then one localized tornado, across 4 counties. So it's an extra challenge to organize all that effort because there's multiple places where they need to be organized. But the Southeast Hub is going to be working with us on the tornado response, which we really appreciate, in kind of a regional way across a few counties. So it's a lot of 5,000 foot level coordination that's going on. Usually Volunteer Mississippi is behind the scenes. We're not necessarily boots on the ground, but we are trying to look at the big picture and see where the resources that we can coordinate would be most efficient. And we try to reduce chaos. We try to place those resources in safe places where they can be immediately deployed. And again, our goal is to support what already exists in the community. We want organizations that serve those communities every day to be back on their feet, serving the people that know them and that trust them. And we want all the resources to go to those agencies as much as possible. So I think that is the end of my spiel about the state level disaster response around volunteers and donations. Are there any questions?
Here. What is the best federal and or state stimulus package for small faith-based 501c3 to apply for a fund? So Rebecca, if you want to reach out to us separately, we can link you with our webinar and our resources to help you answer that, specifically looking for funds. Any other questions for Caitlin before we switch over to Krista? All right, Caitlin, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I know that you and your team are incredibly busy, and I should have said this from the onset, and want to acknowledge that the lives that were lost and have been lost from COVID-19, we've also lost several souls here in Mississippi from the tornadoes this last weekend. And so Mississippi's taking a hit right now. I know that we're all working hard to make sure that we can support our communities in any manner that they may need from any disaster. And so thank you for the work that you're doing and your team, and good luck with everything coming up in the future.